Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com, debatephysics.com also, video presentation, response to comments. So, on this channel, which was Improbable Matter, I did post a link. It didn't show right away, so I guess he reviews comments, which means that he probably saw the link, so at least we know he saw it. Now whether he'll respond, we'll see. I did email him, sent a polite enough email. Maybe I'll read that just for fun. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Oh, yeah, it's okay. Can't see that. Anyway, so I can do this. All right, I watched a few of your fusion videos and thought they were well produced. Quite honestly, I don't think the underlying physics is correct, and certainly believe it is reasonably debatable. I've made a response video. Certainly I can't prove in this email that it deserves your time, but I sincerely think it does. Fact is, I'm willing to pay you. Okay, so look, this goes to anybody out there. I'll pay you to respond to my videos in some sort of coherent way, where you actually play the video and point out where something I said can be proven to be wrong. You for your time to give it fair consideration and provide fair critique. So I am willing to pay you, okay, if you're going to be a physicist, you're going to have some credibility, make some sort of credible argument, I'll pay you for your time. So, name your price. If you need such encouragement, please let me know what your price range for a few hours of thoughtful consideration would be. Best regards and such. So, I can only do my part here, as I've stated. If all the physicists are, kind of lying cowards, I can't do much about that. Except point out how, gee, I thought they were supposed to be decent people. I didn't think they were going to just be another version of religious nut. But apparently that's all you're going to get, is a version of a religious nut. Humans only come in that form, apparently. And us alien types, I'm revealing my real alien function. Yeah. Yes, it's all LED controlled, blah, 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 blinky lights, Star Trek, blinky lights. High tech, proves it's high tech. All right, so anyway, so the funny thing is this Watto guy, who probably is Farley. I don't think there's anybody else who whatever does this Watto thing, whatever that is, posts a couple of snarky comments, so I just thought I would respond to those, because they're just such lies, and it's just all they have. This is all they can do, is lie. Alright, so it says, DraftScience claim that water vapor, not CO2, is the real climate change culprit. No, what I claimed was that heat is the culprit. That all of this heat is the culprit, okay? Yes, the water just makes it kind of obvious in terms of what you would call as an accelerating cycle. So that's the one that can get out of control as a, feedback loop. The hotter the atmosphere, the wetter the atmosphere, the hotter the atmosphere, the wetter the atmosphere. That's the one that's got a feedback loop in it. All right. Stole it from Michael Brand Vriesen, he's saying. Video which he reviewed some years back. Well, why don't you link to it, and then we could see what he exactly said. That's exactly what I said, which it isn't. So anyway, DraftScience routinely steals content from other people. This is just so preposterous. I mean, I have done nothing but ridicule Sabrina Hassenfelder and Michael Van Briesen for being idiots and morons. So what's the what's the point of this nonsense? Without giving them credit. Credit for what? You're saying they've said something innovative or unique? Everybody knows water's a greenhouse gas, just pointing out that, well, any increase in the temperature is going to create an increase in the amount of water is hardly, you hardly have to be Einstein, just like you hardly have to be Einstein to figure out that bent space doesn't work because gravity creates an insane amount of heat. And there's no way to turn heat into some kind of bent geodesical thing that warps time. There's no explanation for how heat dissipating in the universe somehow bends space and time. without giving them credit, and claims that these are his original claims. Well, I don't think I even said anything about originality on this, but on this subject, I'll just demonstrate originality. So I'll just do some of that right now. And point out that none of these people have any clue what energy is or how the universe actually works. So as I have repeatedly stated, and of course no one's going to show me anyone else who said it first, so they can lie, but there's nobody who has in any way responded to any of these points. I've argued that current in a wire, for example, would be heat, okay, and it's heat in a direction, okay, so it's just directional heat. So multi-directional heat, not much use to it, but if you can make it go in one direction, then it has a lot of value and use. You could argue an explosion, without the pipe bomb, isn't very effective, so the more little bits of crap you can pack around your explosion to fly away with your explosion, the more you're going to get a projectile motion instead of a bunch of radiant heat. Radiant heat isn't going to be very effective at killing somebody, but projectiles will. So that kind of logic. So all motion is what I've talked about, that motion is what the universe lives on. And it doesn't matter whether it's a little thing, small mass, even in any V, it doesn't matter what the V is. That's all that matters. So I can have a little tiny mass moving, I can have a big mass moving, I can have a bigger mass moving. It all is the same thing. Technically, it's all a kind of heat. It's all motion in the universe. And the only thing that matters is the difference between two motions, the conflict they have. So that's why, hot things make cold things warm. But cold things, that's it. You can't move heat it only goes in the one direction, from things that have a lot of motion to things with less motion. And the same is true for big objects or any size objects. It's always the same rules. You have to add motion in terms of understanding that there's a general equality in the universe, and all you're looking for is places where there's a difference. So, and that's it. There's and the difference created by the Earth, the interesting difference, is the fact that the heat from the universe has to go through the Earth to get to your butt, all right, or your feet, we'll just say. And the heat from above you doesn't have to go through the Earth to get to you, and that's the obvious differential you're in. And it's just a heat differential. And where's the heat? Well, it's obviously inside the Earth. Earth is molten, and it's molten because of gravity. So again, where did Van Briesen or what's her face say anything about these kind of arguments about how heat works, and that it's, frankly, it doesn't matter what our source of energy is in terms of what we're tapping. As long as we're tapping it by creating heat, we're going to get into trouble. And the use of it is creating heat. We can't use the energy without radiating heat. So all of it ends up being discrete heat in the atmosphere. So all of our activity, doesn't matter how we generate our activity. Yeah, well, the aliens aren't perfect. It doesn't matter how we generate it. It doesn't matter. It's all going to dissipate into the atmosphere as heat. Even if we did like geothermal, technically we're taking heat that would take, 10 years to get to the surface, and we're bringing it to the surface immediately. So all of these things generate heat no matter what way we create it. Solar panels, it doesn't matter. It's all taking the heat, right? The sunlight, we're going to take it, put it in, and we're going to heat a bunch of wires, heat a bunch of transformers, heat a bunch of stuff, and then ultimately use it and create more heat. And so it's just the fact that there's 9 billion people making a lot of heat. And that's why we're in a global warming crisis, is because we all create too much heat. Okay, we put too much heat into the atmosphere, and all of that heat agitates the water, puts more water vapor into the atmosphere, making the atmosphere denser, so it holds more heat. It takes a longer time for the heat to get out of the atmosphere and reflect back into space. And just like the Earth collecting heat, we're making the atmosphere collect heat. And it just makes the atmosphere get hotter and hotter because it doesn't cool down at night. Simple enough explanation. So, yeah. So you'd show me the Van Briesen argument that's that argument. You show me Sabine Hassenfeld, they're making that argument that, all motion is heat. Because all of and you're just really saying that the motion we really like is motion in one direction. And the scattered motion we don't like so much because it's hard to collect. And so the simple argument is that all of the useful energy is a differential in one direction, and the unuseful energy is when it's going in all directions, and it's a lot harder to capture. Period. More work. And we don't want to do more work. We don't have to dump all the heat from, say, Niagara Falls. We don't have to dump it into the water. The heat from nuclear power plants, we don't have to push that into the air. We choose to because we just want the high efficiency transfer. We want to go from hot to very cold. We don't want to go from hot to warm because we don't get as much energy that way. And so we don't keep the warm. We have to get rid of it. And that's, a liability for all of our ways of generating energy, is that we don't clean up after ourselves, and every step of the energy use and energy creation and energy use process spills heat. So if you're not going to fix that, you're probably not going to fix global warming. So sinking carbon really won't save the day, because it wasn't the carbon that was the problem. It was all of the energy that went into making the hydrocarbons, and the hydrocarbons, releasing the other parts of the energy that the carbon was part of, is the problem. The heat. The heat. That's the problem. I guess I should just add as a final statement. So there's nothing stolen from anybody. There's no evidence of that. He didn't link these videos that apparently he says, even though I played them, that somehow I stole the content of them. All of my videos for 10, 11, 12 years worth of videos, thousands of videos, every bit of what I'm arguing has been in those videos. The evolution of the theory, again, it's called DraftScience for a reason, because it started off with an argument that I couldn't make quite as articulately as I can make it now. And the fact that, and that's because all of this stuff has occurred to me. I didn't know 3 months ago, I didn't realize that bent space is so easily defeated as a theory by just pointing out that gravity creates heat. Because as soon as gravity creates real energy in the universe, it's non-conservative. There's no mechanism to get the energy into anything called the bent geodesic, so it's a defeated theory. It's nonsense. Now, show me somebody else saying that first, okay, and then show how there's any connection between me and that person, that somehow I saw something or heard something from somebody, but they're not going to do any of that. So it's just these lies, these constant lies, this constant harassment, this slander, and this is all they have. This is all the defenders of science has, is lies. They can't make an honest argument. All they can do is lie. And it's worse. I mean, religious people aren't this dishonest. All right. So the next comment. Okay, this guy in Random Draft Science has been shown, how his charge simulation and theory of force bits violates conservation of momentum. There's no where is this, liar? So again, no links to anything. Just accusations that there's somebody made some argument that the simple simulation that has, every action has already been, I've already explained every single possible interaction, All of them are conservative. None of them make anything happen magically. So what the fuck is this argument? Where's the violation of conservation of momentum? It's just ludicrous. So just again, they just type these words and you don't take, and the rest of you don't take any accountability, because none of you are gonna tell this guy to shut the fuck up because you're making you look like a lying scum. None of you stop this from happening. You know, you just let people type these lies. Let's see. How NASA's shuttle heat shields. So I'm talking about thrust. He's talking about the heat shields. You get this, complete evasion. I mean, huge duplicity. All right. And the fact that you're going to test a heat shield, do I really have to explain to you how you're going to test it? You're going to put a blowtorch on it and say, okay, I could calculate the kinetic energy of the blowtorch. And then I can calculate what I expect the kinetic energy to be if, a shuttle is flying through the atmosphere. So what? I'm using, garbage and garbage as numbers. So yeah, it'll be a consistent answer, but it's still wrong. I mean, saying if it's really 5,000 degrees and you've tested it at 5,000 degrees and you want to call that 10,000, well, yeah, your test matches the reality, but it doesn't mean the formula's right. Doesn't mean it's giving you a right answer. Just means it matches the same thing you tested in, the same bad thermometer was used in both circumstances, then it's fine. You don't need an accurate thermometer if your test condition is using a broken one and your actual condition is using a broken thermometer. It doesn't matter as long as it's broken in the same way. So it's just such bullshit that somehow you've proven that kinetic energy theory predicts the heat in the atmosphere, because it doesn't. All right, you have no evidence of that. All right, college lectures with math explaining the full double slit interference pattern. Lie. Nothing. Nowhere near it. Okay, just an absolute fucking lie. So it didn't happen. It's not the full double slit experiment. Both slits open. It doesn't explain the double maxima, and it doesn't explain the two patterns. Wave theory can't do that unless the wave theory recognizes that the wave centers have to be right on the surfaces. That's the only math that'll ever get the right answer, is waves on the surface. Right on the surface. The surface is here. The wave center has to be on the surface, not going through the slit. No waves go through the slit. The waves happen on the surfaces. That math always works. Absolute fact. Pathetic liar. Okay. Evidence demonstrating every other nonsense claim he makes. So that's just, it's almost disgusting that he puts this between two spaces and pretends this is a real argument. I say so. He's been proven wrong. I say so. I mean, disgusting. All right. His reaction is to yell at anyone. So big lie. 98% of my videos are not me reading comments or any of that other crap. It's me doing physics, explaining why I believe what I believe. So just a huge frickin' lie. To the contrary, ban them from his channel. I only ban people from the channel just like you. Liars. People who can't make an argument without lying about something and then forcing me to defend myself against a lie. And that's not my job. Again, I brought up thrust. You brought up shuttle fucking heat tiles. I didn't make any claim about shuttle heat tiles. There's no experiments going to be relevant to shuttle heat tiles. The experiment's about, what moves you in space in terms of like the Gravity movie using a fire extinguisher. And the simple argument is if I calculate the kinetic energy of the stuff coming out of the fire extinguisher, I won't get an equal and opposite reaction. I won't get the same kinetic energy in my motion. And that's an absolute fact. What I will get is the same momentum. So if I calculate the momentum, I'll get an accurate understanding of how much energy I can expect to absorb. That's an absolute fact. And you just evaded the whole subject. You piece of you're just such a piece of human garbage. You should be outed and appropriately pilloried in the future for just being a stinking, lousy, lying piece of crap. So what I have done, instead of yelling, is say you should get what you fucking deserve, you lying scum. You can't make a physics argument. You can't make a reasoned argument. You can't make a logical argument. You can't make an evidenced argument. Instead, you do this shit constantly. He keeps repeating his lies. So there's no evidence that I've lied about a single fucking thing. They can't quote these lies ever. So there's no quotes of any lies of mine here. All right. That no one has countered him. Well, of course, the counter argument is in what form? I've debunked literally dozens of fake experiments. Dozens of them. Where they didn't understand the simplest of variables. They couldn't even measure a height correctly. All right. He has done this to dozens of people over the years. Well, name them. Yes, liar. Okay. It certainly it's not dozens. And and everyone who makes a counter argument, I played their argument and debunked it. It's in the record. It's in my videos. Okay. He does not understand middle school math. Well, even if I did, I understand a formula that works and one that doesn't work. MGT always works. MGH only works if a human being sticks to something in gravity and lets it go. There's no natural condition where MGH works. Because nothing starts from zero. Nothing gets into gravity going zero. So it doesn't work. All right, R physics, and his eyes glaze over at the first line of simple algebra. So this is just all more waste of time nonsense. And the fact is you can't figure out that gravity creates heat. And you can't figure out that it doesn't take 25 times the fuel to spin a motor 5 times as fast. So he's going to insult my intelligence as if I'm an idiot. Well, this idiot doesn't believe it takes 25 times the fuel to spin something 5 times as fast, and he damn sure knows that spinning it 5 times as fast does not make 25 times the energy. I know the turbines at Niagara Falls don't work that way. You can't just spin them 5 times as fast and get 25 times the energy out of them. Nothing works that way. It's complete fable nonsense. All right, his entire babble about momentum and KE boils down to the fact that he doesn't understand vector. So again, I understand that you think there's such a thing as a scalar energy. That is an energy that has no direction. And I know that to be like as dumb as you can get. I mean, how fucking non-physical can you get to claim that there's such a thing as a velocity that isn't in a direction? I mean, it's just so idiotic on its face. How can anybody believe, oh, okay, I can go very fast in no direction? No, you can't go very fast in no direction. So anyway, too silly. Addition or multiplication. Yeah, well, yeah, I really doubt the multiplication part. But yes, the very fact that you think there's such a thing as negative energy makes you an idiot. Negative heat, negative energy, negative any of that crap makes you an idiot. You're an idiot because there's zero evidence for any kind of notion that you can make more motion and somehow you made less motion. Somehow it's less energy to make more things move. So the more things I move, the less energy I use because I just do a bunch of cancellations. I have an atomic bomb goes off and it sends energy in every single direction, the same amount of energy. And so therefore it made no motion in the universe. It didn't create any heat, didn't move anything, didn't change anything. That's how idiotic your theory is. He accepts that velocity is a vector only because he likes to hear his voice. Well, I'm not going to argue this nonsense. I accept that velocity and speed are exactly the same thing. They're just a measure of how fast something's going, how much distance it's traveling in a segment of time, and it's insanely. I can't, like I say, how do you describe people idiotic enough to think there's some reason to make a distinction between speed and velocity? Like there's somehow that's possible. That something could have a velocity of 60 miles an hour and they would have a speed of something else. Too ridiculous. But rejects that momentum is also a vector. So again, this is just nonsense. Of course I think momentum's a vector, and I think that's all there is. And that's the simple argument. There's zero evidence for kinetic energy. It's a silly, nonsense, fable, religious piece of crap, and he has made no counter-argument, provided no evidence. So again, he's not shown how the 5 mass going 10 has twice the energy of the 10 mass going 5. Zero evidence. Zero. All right. He says that he has watched hundreds of university science lectures. I don't have to just say it. It's a fact. I've recorded myself watching some of them. So you could argue that, some percentage. So I played all of the Professor Lewin 101 lectures in my videos. I played all of Professor Dave's kinematics videos in my video. All right. I played a ton of Van Briesen videos. And I've certainly played some Stanford, and I played a bunch of Yale videos in my videos. Okay. Science lectures on YouTube, but he never does the math. Well, that's a lie. We're arguing about the math. We're arguing about an idiotic mathematics that says, your mathematics says, all I do is hit a heavier object with a lighter object and I make free momentum. We're arguing about that math and whether that's ever true, that I can make free momentum by just banging a light thing into a heavy thing. All right, anyway, let's see. Never does the math or the experiments. Why would I do the experiments? So again, why would I do radar experiments or all these other kind of technical experiments when I don't have any of the tools to do that? I don't have a lab. No one's financing me. This is just such bullshit. So science has had 350 years to do a tug of war between a 5-ton train going, a 5 mass going 10 and a 10 mass going 5, and they haven't even done that tug of war experiment. Now I could probably do that one, frankly. But I think you already know the answer. You already know what it's going to be, and you don't have any explanation for why the 5 mass isn't going to win. What's your explanation? The energy just disappears? All right. Yeah, it's just so bad. These people are just such liars. All right, 95% of the video content go over his head, so whatever. So daydreaming about future statues of himself, and the only thing he gets out of them is how to pronounce sciencey words in his own videos. So again, all these videos pointing out all of these reasons, demonstrating the physical motion of things, showing that I did do the lever experiment, for example, the balance, with the 1 mass moving 4 velocity and the 4 mass moving 1 velocity, demonstrating that those two things are equal. And that if I put a 1 mass going just 2 velocity, it just won't work. Won't oscillate at all, demonstrating that it isn't the same energy. The result is that he continually conflates the words energy, momentum. So there's no conflation because they're all the same thing. Energy, momentum, force, heat, all the same thing. Entropy is just nonsense. So that doesn't mean anything. Sometimes in the same sentence. Yeah, I'll do it over and over again. Energy is momentum. The force is always, it's either in a big object or it's in discrete bits, but it's always doing the work. Okay, the matter is merely pushed by force, period. It's a push-averse. Why don't you say that? He says there's a thing called the push-averse. Yeah, that's what I say. The universe, it doesn't have a pull in it. It can only push. All right. So yes, and heat, in this very argument, I'm making the point that heat is energy. Of course it is. I mean, you'd have to be an idiot not to think it is. All right. So, well, it's a half hour. Maybe that's enough. I do want to I'll make, the last video really did go over everything. I mean, the 4 big arguments. I think gravity, 1/2 mv squared, the double slit experiment, and I think there was one more. And, those 4 big ones. And, this is all of their physics. It's all based on these simple experiments that they've perverted and these axioms that they invented that are just absolute nonsense. 4 pounds dropped 1 foot, same as 1 pound dropped 4 feet. Even though 1 pound dropped 4 feet is only twice the velocity. It only takes twice the time. So it's only in the gravity twice as long. How could it collect 4 units of energy if it's only in the gravity twice as long? That's how idiotic their physics is. It misses something that simple and perverts it. So again, the challenge is I've offered thousands of dollars. Fact. I can show the emails. To get a counter argument from a credible physicist, somebody with something to lose, somebody with an audience, okay, to humiliate themselves in front of, and none of them will take my money. None. Not a single one so far. 50 channels. I've offered $2,000 or more. Okay, Veritasium $4,000, Thunderfoot $4,000. And they won't take my money. They'll take commercials. They'll sell shit, but they won't take my money. And they won't make the counter argument because frankly they can't make it because it's a garbage argument. MV squared can't be defended. There's no physical way to create evidence without obviously cheating. Real experiments will show the truth that there's no reason to believe it takes 25 times the fuel to move something 5 times as fast, and something moving 5 times as fast will not do 25 times the work. Fact. And these lying religious kooks pretending to care about the truth and science, all they can do is lie. So I'm just showing it for what it is, right? The future is going to draw its conclusions, okay? And it's going to be clear what happened here. I got up and I made reasonable arguments pointing out flaws in your theory. And what did you do? You just tried to shut me up. Yeah, that's all you did. You didn't counter the argument. You didn't care about the truth. You didn't show any integrity. You just behaved like a bunch of petty losers. Period. Oh, you didn't think of it, so therefore it must be wrong. Yeah, is that all? Is that all it's really about? You're being shamed by somebody who didn't go to college. Is that it? What's the deal? No, you can't figure out that gravity creates heat. I couldn't figure it out. I've had 65 years to figure it out. I didn't figure it out till a few weeks ago. Obviously, gravity creates an insane amount of heat. How could you have a conservative theory of energy in the universe if you have a mechanism that creates a ton of heat and you don't have anywhere for that heat to go? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So just gravity just perpetually makes heat and it doesn't take any energy to make the heat. The obvious answer is no, it does. It's just the same heat coming back. Okay, it's just at a different frequency. And that's all you've done. It's a cycle of heat. Okay, the heat goes into the universe, and the universe compresses more matter with that heat. All right, and the compression creates heat, and that goes out into the universe and compresses more stuff. It's just a cycle. Anyway, so that's probably enough. Yeah, I'll try to make a more... there's really a point where we're kind of done. I guess I could argue, and it's just again about making the argument clearer and clearer, I suppose. But I mean, the gravity argument's a done deal. Okay, there's no counter argument. I haven't seen a single sentence explaining how gravity doesn't create heat. Okay, and there's certainly never going to be a sentence explaining how the heat disappears from the universe and turns into some invisible bent geodesic. They're never going to show you that. All right. And all of it. The fact that I've perfectly diagnosed the two-slit experiment, I've produced a charge simulation that it does everything Maxwell's equations require something to be. It produces exactly what Maxwell's describing. They can't touch it with a rational argument. All they can do is lie. All right, so I'll post this as a response to his comments and such. It's just disgusting. People. Deplorable things, human beings. I mean, really, this is years of doing this, and not one of you pieces of scum, you know, can sit there and concede these are arguments that need to be answered, not evaded.